Hey guys, welcome back to Detroit Garage. We're going to be talking about governors today. A lot of you guys have been asking about the governors on the 453T. So I'm going to try to answer some of these questions and show you the differences between the single weight variable speed and the double weight limited speed governors. So here we have a horde of different governors and different configurations on the engine. So you can have a governor on the passenger side or the driver's side of the vehicle, or vice versa. This example here is a double weight limited speed governor that we use on the highway. And this one here is off my Silver I bought. And it's a single weight variable speed, and that's quite common on the industrial applications, farm equipment, skidders, things like that. And then for gen sets, they use a Woodward hydraulic governor to get the frequency set correctly. So the big differences, obviously, are the double weights versus the single weight, and then the variable speed versus the limited speed. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm just going to show you, for giggles, an abused governor. So this engine came out of a skidder. I don't know exactly the background details, but... Okay, so to show you some abuse these engines take, here's a broken governor. Wow. Jesus. Oh, interesting. Okay. I like looking at the carnage after after I buy an engine or after it's broken or something like that, to find out why and how come. So so here's a functional governor. It's a single weight VS governor, and it's fully functional. The riser swivels on the shaft, and both weights have the tabs that run on the collar here. Can you see that? This one, so on this governor off the Silver series, one of the tabs is broken on the weights. You can see clearly there's a tab here, and that tab there is missing. And for the riser, you can see the wear marks in it from the weights running up against the riser. So this one's had a lot of hours on it, and some reason it broke a weight. And fortunately, these are all rebuildable, so you can get new weights for them and rebuild them, no problem. So that's the single weight. And this one is a correctly functioning one here. So we're continuing on with the single weight, and on the housing it'll be stamped single weight VS, and the top of the governors differ. The VS governors have one handle on here, and that's it. Okay. And the double weights have two handles on the top, two levers, one for fuel shutoff and one for the governor operation, the fuel control. Okay, so I'll take the lid off of this governor. This is a fully functional single weight variable speed governor. So this is the fuel shutoff right here, and this is the throttle. Controls the RPM of the engine. And you can see when I move this lever, that moves the control rod to the rack. All right. Essentially, it's the shut-off lever, and it controls the rack on and off. And when you have it in the run position, the rack is in full fuel condition. So I'll explain that in a second. And that's the internals. You got your buffer screw, your throttle control or control rod, and then the governor function here. As the weights speed up, they come out, push up against this, and this moves this way, up against the spring. And the spring controls your maximum RPM. And in this case, when you set the throttle, it regulates the RPM of the engine to a set condition. So let's say you're running a piece of equipment and you want the throttle set at 2000 RPM. So you set the throttle at 2000, and the spring pushes up against the governor control here and equalizes, and the throttle is set at 2000. The engine stays at 2000. So if the engine comes under a load, the weights will retract slightly, and then the spring will take over here and add more fuel. As soon as the fuel is added and it comes back to 2000, it reduces the fuel again to maintain 2000 RPM. So that's where the term variable speed comes from. So it's really, I like to call it a constant speed governor. So you set the throttle and it stays there basically. The engine goes to full fuel or idle to maintain that throttle setting you have, or the RPM setting you have. And that's how that works. So a lot of you guys got boats, and you'll have these in your boats. And that's why when you go to move your throttle on your boat, nothing happens to the rack because the engine's not running. The engine has to be running for this governor to function. And when you start it up, the rack is in full fuel, and immediately the governor takes over and brings it back to your set throttle settings. Okay, that is the single weight variable speed governor. Now I'm going to show you the double weight limited speed governor. Now, I know some of you guys know Detroit's well, and you're going to say, wow, that looks like a single weight VS governor housing. And you are correct. Somebody has modified this governor housing. So what I'm going to do is, I'll show you in a second. It's all wonky. So I'm going to rebuild this and set it up. I've got another tag that says double weight LS, and I'll put that on this. But this is for the new Silver Series. I'm going to configure it with the double weight LS governor. All right, so from external appearances, other than one's for one side, this one's for the passenger side and this one's for the driver's side. but barring that, they're basically identical from the outside. The only difference, of course, is the internals are different. So here's a double weight limited speed governor versus your single weight VS governor. So this governs idle and max RPM. And how it does that, it has two different weights. So during the idle period, there's two sets operating. And once the RPM comes up to about 1,000 to 1,300, all of these weights are then pulled out, and then it's the operator's control. So I'd have to check the manual again, but I think it's around 1,100 RPM or 1,300 RPM. And between 1,300 and your set max load, your set no load max is controlled by your foot on the throttle. So when you, the reason this is good is because when you're operating your vehicle and you say you've got a manual or an automatic or whatever, and you're sitting at idle and you put your vehicle into gear, this automatically compensates on the idle side by adding and reducing more fuel to maintain that idle RPM. And on my truck, I've got mine set at 625. So this will maintain 625 and add and reduce fuel accordingly. As I accelerate and go to 1,300 or 1,100 RPM, all of these weights come out, and then now my foot is governing the RPM. So my foot governs the RPM and the fuel load until I get to 2,500 RPM, and then these governor weights take over and maintain the 2,500 RPM I have set. All right, so that's the differences in the governor weights. And then for the top of the governor and the controls, so you can see how wonky this thing is. It's all screwed up. It's all worn out, so you can see. So I'll have to put new bushings in this to get it to tighten up and everything. All right, so here's the top of the double weight limited speed governor, and you have the two levers. This is your stop lever, and that's your throttle lever. So it's anchored like that. So this is your throttle, and that's your stop lever. And the difference is when you put this to run, the rack is then controlled by the throttle here. And when you've put it in start, this will move forward, push the rack to a advanced, depending on how you have your fuel modulator. You could have a full fuel condition or a limited fuel condition like I have set on my engine, where it only gives it a small amount of fuel to reduce the smoke. So that's how that works. So throttle, stop lever, all right? This is the underside of it, stop lever and throttle. And you can see the difference. So on this one, this variable speed, you could you could make it a double speed by all you have to do is drill out this housing and put in another lever, and then you have yourself a new top. So if you're ever in a pinch and you can't find a double weight, you can always drill out the single weight housing and make your own double weight. So, and of course the internals of the double weight are different again. Okay, so as these weights come out, so this would be at an idle position. As this spins, as the governor spins, like this, the centrifugal force pulls these weights out. As it does that, it moves the riser here down. See that? So it's hard to show without spinning this up, but as these weights come out, they pull that riser down, all right? So the riser gets pulled this way, down to the bottom. Okay. As that occurs, this collar sits, or the forks sit on this riser here, on this surface along here. So as that gets pushed in like that, it pulls up against the fork here and rotates that shaft. So there you have it. You're on your idle low speed governor, and you're running along, and as you add a load, it's gonna push that like that and add more fuel. As the engine speeds back up, it reduces the fuel to the point now you're touching, your low speed and your high speed are touching, and now you're on your high speed governor right here, and that's your foot is to the floor and you're running along on a flat surface, and now your high speed spring is controlling the max RPM on the engine. As you come up against a hill, let's say you're on a, here, let me tighten this up. So you come up against a hill and you're on your high speed spring like this, and then it's gonna start backing off like that, adding more fuel and back and forth, okay? And that's how that works. And then this fulcrum, of course, is always in the works. So I hope that helps you guys with figuring out how these things work. And the shims I talked about are right in here. You add a shim here, and it adds more tension on that spring. And when you push up against your high-speed spring, it takes more force to overcome it, so then your engine runs at a higher RPM. And that's as simple as that. So there's the bottom housing. The wear items are the bearing here. There's a small bearing in the bottom, and then this shaft here. This has got some wear on it. So we're going to find a replacement shaft so that there's no play at the very bottom. And there's also play on this tube, so we'll address that issue as well. So here's the governor spring assembly. Low speed spring and then the high speed spring. And that's what's inside of it. That's the low speed and the idle adjustment. Low speed spring, and goes in like that. Just unlock it. And we'll pull that bearing out and have a look. There. So we're just going to bring this shaft out. There it is. Simple as that. And of course, these come apart, and then you replace the bearing on here and then press that back on. If there's no play in this bearing, I'll keep the bearing. And there's the top housing. That should be a press fit. I'm not sure how that got loose like that, but anyway, we'll repair that. So there you go, guys. That's the governor. See how simple that is? Just incredible. So there you have it, guys. Again, thanks for checking in. Hope you enjoyed this video. And if you have questions, leave a comment below, and I'll get back to you on the answer to it. So again, thanks for checking in, and we'll catch you on the next video. Take care.